welcome to Playwright, a podcast about creating and sharing new ways to play. My name is Ryan Hamann. You can call me H.
And I'm Ryan Quintal. You can call me Q.
Today I've been playing a bit of Carrion that just released onto Game Pass on PC and console.
Yeah. I'm so excited about playing it.
I know, that was one where it's like, you see the concept early on, you're like, okay, I like the concept. There's no way that's actually working in action, but it's on Game Pass, so I might as well give it a shot. And I've been having a ton of fun, actually. Like, it works way better than it has any right to work. Like, something like that should not work as well as it does. And I don't know how they did it, but it feels like magic.
It's also, correct me if I'm wrong, the sort of, I guess, protagonist in that game is kind of a sort of monster that they've fake hinted at in E3s of the past, like coming into their, Devolver has such strange directs that they do. And I know they're always going off into this weird territory, but I remember like them doing some sort of Lovecraftian body horror beast or something in one of their presentations in Europe's past.
I wonder if that was coincidence or whether that was, I wonder how far ahead of time they signed these titles.
Right. Yeah. I mean, maybe they just were like, this is our aesthetic. This aligns perfectly. Go for it.
Speaking of Devolver presentations, I also, like, just today after work, spent, I don't know, the half hour that it takes to go through the Devolver Land Expo. Have you played that?
I haven't, no, but the entire concept feels like a Playwright pitch, doesn't it?
Yeah. So it's essentially, because E3 was canceled, they're doing kind of a virtual E3 in a way. It's kind of like it's a virtual expo hall that they've turned into a first-person shooter in which you're carrying around a t-shirt gun to defend yourself from like security robots, because it's, apparently you're breaking into the E3 building after hours, and so you can wander around the like NVIDIA booths, but most of it's Devolver stuff, the way it should be. So they have all these like really lavishly and really beautifully constructed booths based on some of their upcoming games. And basically you just have to like go to each booth, watch the trailer for the game, and it, allows you to progress in the game. But just like walking around the show floor feels so kind of like reminiscent of like actually going to PAX and E3. And it's like, it does feel kind of cool to get back out there virtually. Each of the booths are decorated in a way that like really nicely balances the kind of grounded show floor experience of like, actually having like animatronic props on, pedestals and places where you would actually see them if this was a real show floor, but going way beyond what any budget could possibly allow them to do. So,
right.
And towards the end of the game, the displays do get a little bit more and more impossible as they go, but I still think it's such an impressive thing for them to put out just as a free piece of marketing. Really exciting.
It's almost a statement of intent in a way, like, hey, if we had unlimited budget, maybe these are the types of in-person experiences that we would build.
Yeah, pretty cool. So I definitely recommend checking that one out. It's on, it's on Steam for free. So there's really no barrier to picking it up.
No excuse.
I think over this week in particular, I've been booting up the Game Pass app. And of course, like I kind of try to keep up with like what's coming up because it's relevant to my job. But like just opening the app like every day and just seeing like all of the new games that are releasing like one day after the next, it seems like we've had Neon Abyss and Halo 3 and Forager and Dragon Quest 11 coming up, and Tell Me Why pre-order or pre-install getting set and ready to go. It's just like, man, it's a good time to be a video game fan. And if you're going to subscribe to Game Pass for 1 month, this is not a bad month to do it.
Well, and I'll say this to the, people who are listening to this in the future. The Xbox Game Showcase was today. We've kind of, as I think by the very nature of doing this show, the more experiences that we collect, that's kind of our happy place because it gives us more frames of reference and more ideas and that sort of thing. And it's just kind of maybe the types of gamers that we are. But the entire presentation today, to have some of the bumpers be, guess what? Everything that you're seeing here is coming to Game Pass. it can't be undersold that if somebody's making a purchasing decision about like what console to buy or even what console to keep right now, knowing that you're not going to be spending $400 in just video games, and rather you can get all of that plus the already great catalog that Game Pass has, that's a no-brainer to me. I wish we could do this with, I mean, how many games can we get on it? You tell me, H, I need to know.
I don't know the exact number. I know it's over 100 on both the console and the PC marketplaces right now. But I mean, just thinking about like going into a new generation, and like, of course, this generation, kind of unlike the last one, is going to have backwards compatibility. And so being empty-handed on day one isn't going to be as much of an issue as it has been in previous generations. But like, consoles are so expensive, bringing one home, and like, I remember getting my Xbox 360 home, and you just kind of have, unless you purchased another, $60 game along with it, you just kind of had Hexic HD to keep you company until you could afford something else. But
Kingdom for Keflings in my case.
To think that like, not only will you be able to carry forward all of the disc and digital purchases from the last generation this time around, but to like, even if you are entirely new to the ecosystem, being able to load up Game Pass and get like kind of a best of the previous generation, and like the hot games that are launching like that day, literally. It's exciting.
Yeah, and like you just said, and listen, this isn't, I know maybe people are like, oh, it's the Xbox marketing show here. I just started an Xbox blog, so I've been doing a lot of Xbox thinking lately, and the welcomingness, right? In the same way that Microsoft could, at the launch of previous consoles, say, hey, here's a month or 3 months of Xbox Live to kind of get you in the door, offering a similar thing, even 1 month of Game Pass. If you skipped Xbox this generation, and a lot of people did, okay, here's all the Halo and Gears to catch up with. You've got a month, let her rip, and you'll be ready to go when, and by the way, when the new ones come out, they'll be on this too. So maybe just keep it going. So I just think it's so smart.
Or even better than Halo and Gears, you can play Banjo-Kazooie in 4K.
I will say that I was really bummed I think Everwild looks incredible, but there's so many studios and there's so much going on, and we've still not heard from all of them, but I would love a Viva Pinata. I would love a Banjo, especially in the vein of seeing Mario Odyssey come out, a couple years ago and be so good. I know you could do something great with a Banjo still. Yeah.
Well, if anyone wants me to direct a Banjo game, then I am more than happy to.
That's out in the universe.
I haven't received the offer yet, but putting that out there.
I stand behind you. Yeah. H for Banjo Creative Lead 2020 or 2021 as soon as possible. Get them in pre-pro.
Let's do it, folks. Every year I have to bust out my surely this will be the year that they show Banjo t-shirt once again.
Yeah.
But I got a little bit of Banjo last E3, so I'm still kind of happy. So
it means that they're still paying attention. And we did see a Battletoad in this presentation.
That means that Nintendo's still paying attention. Banjo. Anyways.
Yeah.
Anyways.
I'm going first this week, right?
You go first today.
I can't help but think about some of the recent games from my pitch this week of, oh my gosh, now I've lost the name of it. It's a detective game where it takes place in a very dense neighborhood. It was very recent PC game. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Deadly Premonition, Sherlock Holmes Crimes and Punishment.
No, it was like a systemic detective game. You didn't have your memory anymore. Very unique art style, one location.
Would it be Black Sad Under the Skin?
No.
Are you a giant anthropomorphic animal?
No, why can't I think of it? All right, well, anyway, thinking about, singular but very densely populated spaces, not something the size of a GTA, something the size of, I guess, maybe 4 GTAs ago or something like that. But the idea of being in a neighborhood, a small town neighborhood, starting as a person who you get to choose to be, that is somebody who grew up in this neighborhood, really being able to, I hate to use the term second life, but live out a life in this neighborhood. And you start as a normal person, you can talk to people, you can interact with objects, and maybe that interaction is shallow, but it could be meaningful in some way in terms of you can pick some things up or you can move things or whatever. And as you talk and build relationships with people in this town, you can kind of start taking things in different directions in terms of what your role and fate in this town is. So are you going to talk to someone, build a relationship, and find out that they've got a missing relative who disappeared mysteriously, and you're going to choose to be a detective that goes down and finds what happened to that person's family member? Or maybe you're more interested in building many shallow relationships with townspeople and becoming a politician, or maybe a store or shop owner. But the idea of, imagine this kind of first-person, small-town game with really systemic narratives where you start as a normal person, but ultimately you are capable of many, many things, from insignificant to, very significant, like mayor of the town / religious leader, something like that. But that's the pitch.
Yeah, and maybe a museum could open up in your town, and you can donate like bugs and stuff that you find around, and
plasma.
You could donate plasma to the museum.
That's right.
That would be an interesting
museum.
I mean, this is kind of getting into like Sims kind of territory, although, perhaps with a more of a role-playing bent, kind of like a Fallout meets The Sims in a way.
Yes, I think that's exactly the wheelhouse of this thing, where you've got Fallout, specifically like Fallout 4, the way you could do some light base building, and people would kind of come to the town or whatever. And I always have loved the way that in The Sims, you start off as not kind of a blank slate, but somebody who people are just coming up and saying hello to, and you're just suddenly dropped into this, life, and you kind of steer people yourself towards things like romance and things like, potential friendships or buddy, or even somebody helping you out or getting on your side. So I like that idea, but I'm wondering what it would mean to actually tie some mechanics to it. Like if you're a shop owner, then we have to build in a system of earning money and spending money.
This probably wouldn't be terribly dissimilar to something like my time at Portia or Stardew Valley, where you are kind of like trying to exist within this system, this town, this kind of, living apart from you and aside, beside your property. But,
yeah.
There's a game I saw streamed recently. It's kind of I want to say it's like kind of a Minecraft-y type of game, but it's set in a more realistic environment. You're basically like, you're mining, you're farming, you're doing that kind of thing. It's kind of survival-ish. But one of the things that really struck me was that the money that you pick up are just like physical coins that you carry like any other physical item. They don't disappear and add themselves to some sort of like a numeric counter that is subtracted from. And so if you want to pay for things, then you have to, find whatever bucket you're holding your coins in or wherever you're keeping them, and then actually like put them on the counter, like physical objects, which, adds another kind of layer of like, maybe it's just kind of a pain, but it also feels really liberating to treat money like just the kind of like inherently worthless objects that we imbue worth upon, rather than being some sort of like a grander system that feels like a kind of, kind of
imagine an Elder Scrolls
rules
game where you can pick up and just inspect a wheel of cheese. You can do that to a coin too. Why treat a coin, take it any differently?
There's another game called, Kingdom. It was Kingdom, and then there was Kingdom Two Crowns. Kingdom New Lands, I think, is a remaster of the first one. I don't know. Anyways, it's a kind of a side-scrolling, very pretty pixel art type of game. But the way that the money system works in there is that you have kind of a counter in the upper right corner that is like basically a pouch. And as you're given money for completing quests, coins kind of drop into that pouch and it fills up. There's no number associated with it. It's just kind of like, you can kind of count and you can kind of guess based on how full the bag is. But then once the pouch gets full of coins, then coins that are deposited into it start like falling out. And you could kind of exceed the like quote unquote maximum number of coins you're able to carry by like, you know, if you just kind of happen to balance them on top of the pile, and then you can go and spend those as well. But like, it's just another kind of neat way of taking the regular systems out of a game, making it like almost like a little bit like a mini game, but you know, again, kind of just like treating everything like an equal physics oriented object of the world.
I think that sort of format of thinking about the objects in the world, it makes a lot of sense to me. And I mean, what I was interested in and where The Sims stops, and I shouldn't say this, I haven't played all the expansions of The Sims, and I haven't played The Sims in a while, but where I remember The Sims stopping is you change your stature, you change your income, you even change your family, but your relationships with people, there's not like a hugely deep evolution of those relationships. And like being somebody who is...
I mean, you can get married, you can have children, that's pretty significant.
Yeah, I don't get me wrong, it is, but I guess what I mean is like your neighbors, the ones that you're not directly engaging in those type of relationships with, or building your family around. Mm-hmm. It's not like you can find out something about them and say, hey, I'm gonna help you with this. Like, you've got this big task coming up this weekend of you want to paint your house, and I'm gonna just go to the hardware store. I'm gonna get a paint bucket and a paintbrush, and here I am painting your house on Saturday, entirely of objects in the world in my own volition. And likewise, in the case of maybe doing some detective work, say you do buy a magnifying glass and a notebook, and you now have the mechanical ability to like chart memories or write down facts, and also inspect evidence. And so like having objects have gameplay mechanics and systems tied to them, but those objects treated in a very neutral, I hate to use the term mundane, but a normalized way, because we're surrounded by people who are both boring and extraordinary, and we're surrounded by objects that are meaningless in one context and super important in others. So recreating that feeling is something that I just couldn't get out of my head.
The Sims in the recent games have gotten a lot more complex as far as like social interactions and, you know, forming clubs and
people getting mad at each other and
and holding grudges and people making requests of you and stuff like that. But I feel like, you know, I think there is an extent of like, there's not a lot of information coming up spontaneously. You know, sometimes people will reveal, you'll learn information about people, but I think because the Sims are speaking their own kind of made up language, whenever you learn something substantial about somebody or somebody invites you somewhere, it basically presents itself like an error message popping up. You know, it's like, you just learned that so-and-so is single, or, you know, whatever it is, or so-and-so is a vampire. And it's, I don't know, it feels like that portion of it could be made more organic. And I always want a game world that itself doesn't know what is and isn't important to achieving whatever goals you have set out for. So if you want to learn something that'll help you with something else, you know, you have to actually read the article that mentions it. You know, you don't press E to open up the newspaper and then immediately close it with your character having absorbed all of the information and then highlighting the relevant points when it becomes contextually relevant again. You know, I want that level of that really kind of like immersive, you know, don't feed me the answers, let me learn them and interact with the world accordingly.
Yeah, and also to me, I think the thing that a GTA game creates is the feeling of being a person in a world, but you are not like those NPCs on the sidewalks, right? The NPCs, they're always on the sidewalks. They occasionally cross the street, but they're all kind of living this life, safe, they're a very normal, mundane life, and taking that concept and zooming way in on that block of that street. I think about my grandparents who born, raised, and in the case of my grandfather, passed away in Lowell, Massachusetts. And that's it. It's somebody who has that living, which a lot of Americans have, a lot of people around the world have, which means that you get to know the person who runs the diner, or maybe one day open up a local business, and all the roads and the streets, and when things will happen and when and who's connected to who, and just a game that gives you that canvas and space to do it, whether it's systemic or narrative, I think would be really interesting.
Right, that's enough time spent there. Let's name it.
I was thinking something to the tone of like everyday life or something like that, or something with a small town in it.
Yeah, everyday, let's see, everyday stories, or this could be like an everyday RPG. I don't know if that's packing too much terminology into a title.
There's a ring to everyday RPG. I think like the throwing everyday and then directly RPG in the title makes me think it's going to be pixel art for some reason.
That's true. Could be that.
Could be pixel art. I mean, I don't think it would necessarily be bad as pixel art. It's just, I don't know if it would make me feel it as much. Everything else in my head is like small town or everydayville or something like that. Is there a ville to be had out of this? What about Main Street? What if you did something like that and you really concentrate it down to just like people who are living in, a street?
Let's see, like a name of a town. So I was like Twin Peaks and Thimbleweed Park and all that. Like those are such nice names just because they feel like such specific places.
What if we did, because it's about finding a path and then using it as like a jumping off point to go explore new mechanics that are in this small space, what if you did a town name that exists in many, many places, Springfield?
And not make it a Simpsons game?
And hey, there's a Springfield, Massachusetts. There's a Springfield, Illinois, right? Come on. You guys probably have a Springfield out there, right?
Probably. I was noting I spent one Christmas in Arizona and drove past a Baghdad, Arizona. I'm like, that seems weirdly specific. I guess Arizona in particular has a lot of cities that exist in other parts of the world. Anyways, we can call it Springfield and we can really surprise people who read the episode names first.
Yeah.
All right. Going on to my pitch today. What I'm going to be pitching is essentially a turn-based animation game. Perform simple tasks like walking upstairs and skateboarding by posing a 3D model as it pauses every second, roughly. Readjust weight distribution, planted limbs, even stiffness or relaxedness of muscles to accomplish these tasks. So essentially, like, you're kind of posing this character to perform these tasks and then kind of setting keyframes. And, from keyframe to keyframe, your character has to, eventually end up performing the action. So hopefully it could be built in such a way that it functions kind of as a tool that could be used to teach the principles of animation. It might feel difficult to get a hang of at first, but hopefully I don't want it to be something that's like intentionally stubborn, like QWOP or something like that. Like I want it to be something you could really kind of get a hang of, but it is just kind of the puzzle of figuring out how a body works and should be posed to do certain things. So I'm going to start the clock there.
I love the idea of the output of this being like stop motion animation or something.
And you could even do kind of like the regular motion replay, kind of like you would get in Super Hot afterwards.
Yeah. I'm trying to think about, so we're animating things. There's something about this that feels like if it were a standalone platform that I would want to like be able to export and sell dances in Fortnite or something like that.
That's true. I guess people could do this in like Gmod or Miku Miku Dance or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. I used to use, when I was way back in the day, shout out to this old piece of software I used to use called Poser. Did you ever use Poser or hear about Poser?
No, I think I've heard the name though.
You could probably
I think people have called me that before.
Go Google Poser 3D when you have a second, and I think it's actually the primary platform used now to generate, let's say, a CG adult content.
Okay, all right.
But what's fascinating and really cool about it is it's a 3D program entirely built around modeling the sort of physics of a human body, and it's really great for reference for if you're trying to sketch something. But yeah, the idea of building animations and stuff in it, it's all about that. And so you're talking about there maybe being a rhythm aspect to this, of it's kind of you're asked to have 3 frames that you're building, and then it's 1, 2, 3, go, pose, 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 and then 1, 2, 3, go, pose, pose, pose.
Potentially. I was thinking more of like a kind of like a turn-based strategy type game where it's paused, you kind of like line up your next move in a way, and then, it plays the result of that, and your character either, is well planted or falls down, or, if you lose balance, then it could be really tricky to kind of like regain balance again. You have to put out your leg or your arm as kind of like a counter. You know how when you're falling, your arms go out to your side to try to balance you out.
Yeah, it's that's interesting, because I think one thing that it would be a cool, I don't know if education tool, but a cool tool to kind of show people is we often think, I don't know if it's because cartoons or what, when you're animating, you don't necessarily, unless you're looking at reference footage, get a sense of, oh, sure, my arm, you might think, hey, my arm swings 15 degrees as I walk. Mm-hmm. But some people, depending on, height, weight, that arm swing could be everywhere from a 45-degree swing to an almost just dangling by the side of their body. And so maybe something that I guess you said test to see if the animation works in almost like a simulated physics environment, or can you build an animation for someone to walk on a tightrope or a balance beam?
Yeah, that would be an interesting challenge. And I think eventually this isn't trying to get you to mess up, it's just providing you with challenging scenarios so that you can eventually have a really good grasp of how this kind of thing works, and eventually can do more complex animation type of work with, as kind of an educational tool.
I'm trying to think about, we're talking about full body motion here. I also wonder if you do lip syncing stuff, if you get a script and you're asked to kind of articulate somebody's face to the script. And I think for me, there's always a joy of seeing, this will happen anyway by the nature of video games, I guess, in 2020, but the joy of seeing, people post doing it so well.
Yeah, there is a game that is kind of like a speech version of this. I don't remember the name. It's something like Speech Simulator or Voice Simulator or something like that, but it does essentially, I've not played it, it does look like you are kind of shaping the the openness of the mouth and where the tongue is positioned and all of that to try to speak, but it does look a little intentionally silly. So I think that there's fun to be had there.
What I like about this game is, in a way, it's an empathy generation tool for game devs. When people are like, why can't you just get it to, the voice acting isn't quite synced up to the words.
And we can finally show Ubisoft that actually it's not that hard to animate women.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh boy. I'm trying to think about what additional layers, and maybe there's, not a ton required, but what additional layers could we do in terms of the actual game mechanics of this thing? We've got different challenges. I know that Ubisoft used to be very proud that they hand animated Sam Fisher back in the day. They didn't use motion capture, so maybe there's rope sort of climbing challenges, and you can do all these kinds of physical challenges too, and then different poses to sort of meet them best.
You could do kind of weekly challenges as well, maybe putting out famous dances and stuff that you would have to recreate, kind of like Fortnite and their emotes.
Yeah, that's cool, especially because they can be it's almost an emote generator in that way. I like the idea of in terms of the weekly challenges and stuff, maybe even having a multiplayer mode where two people are asked to do like karate poses, and the models are just kind of put in an arena and repeat their animations and see who can whack who the soonest, in the vein of Cricket Through the Ages. Just some silliness there.
It would be kind of fun. I always really liked there was a multiplayer battle mode in Shovel Knight before there was an actual multiplayer kind of Smash Bros. Like mode. This was for Street Pass though. So it's kind of like a arena fighter in a way, but you would program like a 10-second set of like animations and like movements and attacks that your character would do. And then you would Street Pass, it would send that recording to other people. And it would basically like, I think the person who received the Street Pass would be able to like themselves in real time fight against your recording. Or I don't know whether it put the recordings up against each other. I just remember thinking it was such like a innovative thing to have kind of like an asynchronous fighting game in a way.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, we could totally do that with this.
But I do like the idea of, how difficult it would be to, make this look fluid, and, every keyframe you're noticing, part of the body is leaning far back and is kind of causing some drag or some additional kind of gravitational effect that you don't want it to have. And so you're always kind of like micro adjusting as you go, and then seeing it again all in kind of regular motion would just be so much fun, and would end up looking so silly, kind of like a, zombie just like figuring out how to, amble about with this new body.
I like the idea of figuring out how to sort of test somebody's dexterity in a way, of even doing like, can you recreate the physicality of playing an instrument or something in this space, and then placing that model with that instrument and actually hearing the noises that come out of it.
I mean, we've seen some guitar playing in The Last of Us, so it is entirely doable. And then, of course, there's plenty of instrument simulators in VR that do function like relatively similar to real instruments, where, the velocity of how the strings are struck, or, the drums or whatever, like it all kind of functions on more of a physics system rather than being, distinct note triggers. So, I think that could be cool. We're kind of coming towards the end of time here. The end of all time. Wow. So the last thing that we do on this world, let's find a name for this game. There's the classic song, I Like to Move It.
Is that the name of that song? We're talking about the dun dun dun.
Maybe it's just Move It.
Yeah. I think it. I like to move it. Let me look it up. I'd like to move it.
It might just be called Move It. That would probably be the better title if I was whoever recorded that.
Move It's pretty good. I do like adding in Move It or Lose It, but Move It's pretty good.
Move It or Lose It is fun too. That could be the game over screen. It's like, sorry, you didn't move it. You lost it. All right, let's go over to our community. We have a couple of new pitches in. Thank you, but do please keep them coming. We're going to tear through these in just a couple weeks' time, so we can use some additional video game ideas in the good old inbox. We have one from Richard Radford who says, "Hey H&Q, I just picked up the season pass for the recently announced DLC for Cadence of Hyrule. The first release has new characters to play as, including the sonorous merchant, whose name is apparently Frederick. They got me thinking about a game where you take on the role of a merchant and what he or she is up to in the background while the hero of the story is going on their adventure. It could be something like an action-oriented, like the merchant in Resident Evil 4 or Rodan from Bayonetta, or something really different, like a rhythm game similar to one of those favorite unsung 3DS gems, Weapon Shop de Omas. Thanks always for all the high-quality podcasts. I'm also really enjoying the redacted, you have redacted at the end of each redacted. Thank you very much."
Thank you, Richard, and good move picking up that DLC. I was so excited to hear about that. this takes me back to a game that I know that I think you recently tried. It's on Game Pass. Surprise, surprise. Moonlighter. Yeah, it's so that Moonlighter has you kind of dungeon diving by night and opening a shop during the day and sleeping kind of never in many ways. But the general pitch is that you go in and you're picking up these things, and then there's lots of mechanics about finding out what the perfect price to offer and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I do really like fun. That. So why don't we try to maybe move into the realm of the Resident Evil 4 merchant, because he's such a creep. Or Rodin from Bayonetta.
I was going to say, because, Moonlighter is itself inspired by another game that we've referenced here on the show before called Resettear, which is Recettear, if people want to look it up, and Item Shop's Tale, which is an RPG where you are just the shop owner. So we've kind of seen this play out in the RPG space before. So yeah, if we're going to do this, let's do it in another genre. And I think, one of those kind of first-person shooter or third-person shooter types of scenarios does sound like a lot of fun. You always have to wonder, like, how do they get from place to place? How do they collect all the items that they're selling? I think there's a lot of questions, but I can't think of answers more interesting than just they are going on a parallel path with the hero and having a very similar type of experience.
Well, what if we did, because these merchants have to get stock from somewhere. So what if we had some sort of format where, like, at the beginning of every one of these areas, you always have to make it to the place to receive a shipment. You got to get the shipment, and then you got to get to the spot where you're going to sell it to the hero. And of course, you, by nature of like being one of these merchants, you have access to all these guns and stuff. So you can use them. And you would be just as powerful as, or more powerful, in fact, than the hero who's lagging behind you in the story, because you always seem to get there first too, right? But if you don't manage your own resources well, then you won't actually have enough stock to sell by the time you get to the hero. So maybe it's this, like, how far can you get? Almost the tofu run of a Resident Evil.
I wonder if there's an element of playing both sides, because the monsters never seem to attack the merchant, and, good thing they don't. But I wonder if the merchant gets to each kind of enemy kingdom, kind of sets the boss up with all of their minions and stuff. And so, maybe it requires money to purchase both minions and the weaponry for the hero. And so you kind of have to balance your checkbook as you're selling minions to the boss, and the better the hero is doing, the more minions the boss wants to buy, because the more minions the boss or the hero is killing. But if there's too many minions, then the hero is just, getting swamped. And, he's trying to upgrade to more and more, powerful weaponry, but so it has to be challenging. If it's too easy, then he doesn't need to pay you for more upgrades. But, the only way that he's making money is going out there and killing the minions that you yourself have set up. So you're kind of designing the course and giving the hero the tools to achieve it. And you want to find this balance, kind of like in SimCity. You want to find this balance of, like, the hero is, able to get through like 90% of the stage, but if he ever kills the boss, then, like, that's it. That kingdom's done. You have to move on to the next one.
Man, there's very deep capitalism vibes inside of what you're doing. We have to
being a war profiteer,
exactly. Let's make it exactly perfect so that the person has to use the resource. It's like the same concept as these tools are designed to break.
Yeah.
Maybe we even bring breakable mechanics into it, and you're selling things that have different amounts of stamina or usability on them, and as you do that, you get yourself into a situation where you can potentially upset or turn off the hero in terms of what they want to buy from you, and you're just trying to also like manage the relationship a little bit and keep them, carrot on a stick mode.
There was a game like this on the Apple Arcade last year, and I'm not remembering the name of it. It's two names of these brothers, Japanese brothers, and kind of the conceit of the game was that like the older brother is a video game programmer and the younger brother looks up to him and he wants to play the game that he's building, but the game's not done yet. And so you have to kind of like in real time create the challenges for your brother to accomplish, but it can't be too hard. Otherwise he's going to get frustrated, and it can't be too easy. Otherwise he's going to get bored. So it is a kind of balancing act. And I wonder if I wonder if this is too similar or whether there's ways to kind of like balance it for, this merchant as well.
Some games introduce the idea of a merchant that does not have unlimited money to like buy items from the player. Yeah. So I like the idea of maybe even instead of going full currency mode, there's some kind of negotiation tactic. Or it's always so frustrating to be the player and interact with the AI that's like, clearly if I offer you just like one additional coin, you'll suddenly be agreeable to a thing that was basically the same deal a second ago. Of course you'd have to be really smart and then designing, I guess, the inverse of that AI who's going to offer you a diverse set of things and have like, I guess, common sense somehow well programmed into it.
Could be a system of like the items that you purchase. I always kind of joke about like Animal Crossing, like you're basically paying off your mortgage by selling like, fireflies that you catch outside. It's ridiculous. Like who has such a high demand for sea bass that they'll buy hundreds of them from a person.
Right. It would only make sense if you're the only person in the world that's ever gotten a hold of a fishing pole.
But like, what if you are able to sell certain items back to the boss, and that is kind of like another money loop, something you can generate. And so maybe you want to kind of like, guide the hero towards treasure so that, he can open the treasure chest. You can buy the treasure inside for a certain amount and then sell it back to the boss for a greater amount. And that can kind of also help level up the boss's forces to, be that much more difficult for the hero to get through. All these kind of systems playing against each other.
Yeah, and I do like having some, as long as we're going to go the full capitalist route, some sort of like board of investors that you're always trying to keep happy. Whether that's like because they give you loans or they develop the new technologies. And like, if you're truly the middleman, just imagine you have to first place the order for the things that the hero is going to want in the upcoming level. And just by looking at like some of the raw data, be like, oh, he's going to be dealing with like a lot of these guys and there's going to be a lot of this type of stuff going on. I'll take 2 rocket launchers. And you're always trying to like, not over order, right? And potentially take a bath on something that the hero's not going to buy.
So what do you do with stock that you don't need anymore? Is there a way to increase scarcity or to affect the market in those kind of like, behind the scenes ways?
Yeah, I guess that would make sense. There's also like, because you're trying to make an income, but you're always trying to order new stock of what's going to come up next. You yourself are always trying to do what real merchants do, right? Which is get the better price either by saving up and making sure your order's in bulk, but then are you missing the window that the hero is going to need to purchase the item, or are you going to have enough resources in your coffer so that in the random chance that one of your things goes on sale that you really care about, then you want to have the goods to buy it, on that sale rather than, have it go back up to full price and really eat into your margins.
All good questions. Let's close it down and let the community answer them. What are we going to name this one?
What was the name of the place in Resident Evil 4?
Oh gosh, I don't
know if it had a name or if it was just
Spain?
The village or something. I guess I'm just thinking like the Merchant of Venice, but change the location. Is there like a mercenaries?
Mercenaries is kind of a fun, because it both means kind of a warrior for hire and also like literally a merchant. So mercenaries, I don't know how to spell that exactly, but that is a good, in between of those two words. I enjoy that word.
I'm so curious to find out if an I or a Y will be a linking letter in there somewhere.
Guess we'll have to find out. All right. If you would like to submit a video game pitch to us, then please go to playwrightcast@gmail.com. Go there to email us, or you could tweet us at playwrightcast, or you can go to playwrightcast.com/pitch.
Special thank you to PROTODOME for the use of our theme song. Jeez, we're both really bad at the outro today. PROTODOME is what I'm saying now. Special thank you to PROTODOME for the use of our theme song. Hello World, off the album Blue Noise. Go give it a listen along with the Kane and Rinse video game review podcast, the Sound of Play podcast, the Sausage Factory, and you actually get some bonus pod materials if you are a patron, where you get to hear a little bit of that. I almost think of it as like a director's commentary in a sense of what's going on with Kane and Rinse, but yeah, really cool and a great way to support the site.
It seems like we're saying it more and more these days, but PROTODOME has a new
PROTODOME is becoming
pretty recently. So if you haven't listened to that yet, it's very, very prolific. Yeah. Always a treat whenever PROTODOME comes out. I
haven't seen what's the new
new.
track.
So,
I haven't heard it.
Go check it out. It is called Super Chip Funk.
Super Chip Funk. Do you think? I know this is usually a permission case, but if we bookended the whole episode with a couple seconds of Super Chip Funk to promote it, if PROTODOME would be mad at us?
Yeah, I don't think that would be a problem. We'll see.
I love the colors on this album art. This is just fantastic. So
yeah, it's really nice.
I'm going to buy it. I'm going to buy this digital album right now.
Go for it. I think it is a no minimum price download, but of course, support the arts where you can.
I'm typing in 6,000
within your limits, understanding that we're in the middle of a pandemic and a job shortage.
What is 6,000 rubles? No, I'm just kidding. All right. Hey, do we have a redacted video game for you? Okay, I've got one, and I'm hoping that I'm going to stump you this week. In fact, I'm counting on this one stumping you, and I'm.
All right, I've been brushing up on the entire Ken Griffey Jr. baseball series, so we'll see how far you can get past me.
Got it. All right, this is going to be tougher than I thought. Here we go. 4 years have passed since the aftermath of Redacted, and a great tension now smolders throughout the ravaged world of Redacted. As the battle-worn Redacted begin to rebuild their shattered Redacted, new threats, both ancient and ominous, arise to plague the world once again. And then the next part here is a little bit more expository. Redacted is a redacted experience set in the award-winning Redacted universe. Players assume the roles of Redacted heroes as they explore, adventure, and Redacted across a Redacted.
There was an event 4 years ago that kind of screwed everything up. We're here in the aftermath, essentially starting to rebuild. All right, let's think through what are some possibilities. And this is something that's based on an existing property, it sounds like.
Yeah, an award-winning property at that.
Oh, everything wins. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Like I frequently say, Dead Island has a Game of the Year edition. So I think earning an award isn't the biggest.
Oh, that's all that boat paddle smacking action that they got going on there.
Yeah, exactly. From Spanking Enthusiast Weekly. If I'm thinking about post-apocalyptic in a way, I guess my mind initially goes to Mad Max, although that feels like more than 4 years after whatever went wrong. That feels like, decades on from whatever calamity. So I'm guessing that one is kind of off the table.
Right, that feels far away in a sense.
World War Z feels like fewer than 4 years, if I had to guess.
Kind of like maybe last week the shit went down.
Yeah. The zombies are still fresh, They still got that good old living flesh still hanging onto their bones.
It's in that period where you don't get the good Romero zombie, you get the infected that can sprint at full speed.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Wondering how much time had passed since the beginning of The Last of Us. That felt more like 10, 11 years maybe. Actually, I think that's how much time was between The Last of Us and The Last of Us 2. I don't know.
Would you like some metadata, some context, or maybe a good
let's
and
get
bad
some
review?
Context. Let's get a good bad review. That sounds like fun. These are usually useless, but they're worth a laugh.
This is an actually revealing bad review, but not maybe in a straightforward way that you might get a real hint.
Okay.
Here we go. Stephen M. Terrible waste of time, money, and your life. Seriously, the worst game ever made. Nothing original and nothing a rational-minded gamer would like.
Rational-minded?
Yeah.
What does that even mean? Okay.
Okay. There's a little part of this 10 review that I can't reveal to you because it's too on the nose.
You can redact things from the reviews as well.
Matthew B. writes, "This is, quite simply, the best game I've ever played. Read the reviews and you will see that the people who have given it a score below 8 on here have all been playing it for years. They're complaining the game isn't as good as it used to be, or they've become bored after years of playing."
Interesting. Okay. My next guess was like Jedi Fallen Order, because that takes place after the extermination of the Jedi.
Yeah.
I know there's not a lot of rebuilding there, but I guess if people have been playing this for
a while,
years, and that's off the table as well.
Yeah, it's been out for a while.
Okay, you know what? In the light of the recent Xbox showcase, I'm going to guess that this is Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl.
It is not Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl.
Okay.
Although its awards and rankings might suggest just that to you.
Okay. What do we have as far as awards and rankings?
Here we go. It's the number 2 most shared PC game of 2004, the number 3 most discussed PC game of 2004, and the number 3 best PC game of 2004.
Okay. All right. Okay. This is Half-Life 2?
It is not Half-Life 2. Was that your third guess?
That was second guess.
Second guess. Ooh,
I did some kind of noodling around before, which is probably not fair. Testing the water. But okay, 2004.
You're really going to kick yourself. I'm very excited if you genuinely don't know this.
Is it 50 Cent Blood on the Sand again?
Absolutely. You did it. Ding, ding, ding.
4 years after the concert. He hasn't been able to get his skull back. Oh, okay. All right. All right. 2004. I got to put myself in that range.
Yeah.
Read the description to me again.
Sure.
No, with all this new information, I can probably do
Here
this.
we go. 4 years have passed since the aftermath of Redacted, and a great tension now smolders throughout the ravaged world of Redacted. As the battle worn Redacted begin to rebuild their shattered Redacted, new threats, both ancient and ominous, arise to plague the world once again. Redacted is a Redacted experience set in the award-winning Redacted universe. Players assume the roles of Redacted heroes as they explore adventure and Redacted across a Redacted.
Oh man,
It's some of the redaction I've had to do here I do feel is broad, but I still think that
that's all right. That's all right. I trust your judgment. Yeah. There was one I was really honing in on for like 75% of it, but then like some details towards the end just completely broke it for me. I was going to guess Halo 2 because I'm like, okay, you know what? It feels like the aftermath of the ring world destruction and humanity's rebuilding.
And I think what's good about
threats.
Halo as a guess is that it's set in an award-winning universe. So it's a 2004 game and its universe had already won awards.
Yeah.
Back when we were a little more fastidious about Game of the Year awards.
All right. Could you tell me at least if this is based in a world developed for video games or developed for other mediums?
Yes, I can tell you that. And I can tell you this is a world exclusively developed for video games.
Okay. Interesting. Oh man. Highly ranked PC game. 2004.
G4 TV gave the game a 100.
Okay. Oh, geez. Is it oh God, I just have to guess something, but I'm just like
I know.
coming up empty on like what I would even want to put out there. I want to hone in on like, I just want to guess like, gosh, like a, is it,
yeah, go ahead.
is it Fallout 2?
It is not Fallout 2.
Okay.
All right.
That's earlier anyways.
I'm going to read you the
whatever.
unredacted description.
Okay.
4 years have passed since the aftermath of Warcraft 3 Reign of Chaos, and a great tension now smolders throughout the ravaged world of Azeroth. As the battle-worn races begin to rebuild their shattered kingdoms, a new threat, both ancient and ominous, arise to plague the world once again. World of Warcraft is an online role-playing game.
Wow.
Experience set in the award-winning Warcraft universe. Players assume the roles of Warcraft heroes as they explore adventure, and this may have been a little too much in the redacted, explore adventure and quest across a vast world.
Very interesting. Okay. You know what? I was not even anywhere close to like putting myself in the MMO RPG.
Well, and at that time frame, like how many MMOs would you really have to choose from?
Like story first. Like you're going to want to know about the context of the world before we warn you that this is an MMO.
Right, exactly. Trust us. Like that was back in the day where you're like, trust us. We think this is a good world. But if you had gone into the MMO track, the exact question that you asked about was this award-winning universe based on film or not would have actually, I think, been helpful, because you did have Star Wars Online at the time as a competing service, and
that's a good one. That's a very good, very tricky one.
Yeah, and such a huge game.
It's quite a description. It's like writing a description of Second Life that starts with like Timothy developed, was fighting his battle with cancer as the world around. It's like, that's not what Second Life is. Like, I think of World of Warcraft as being like a platform for social engagement.
Yeah.
It's weird to, but yeah, I guess, that the lore is a part of the world. It is still an RPG. So, well met. That was a very good one.
I did not read you the 10 review that started as, I didn't play vanilla. However, with the release of Classic, I see why so many people like the game. Yeah, too many keywords given away in that one.
Well, very cool. Anyways, we'll see you again next week. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Bye.